Welcome to lesson 1 of the full course, How to Win Architectural Competitions. In this lesson, we're going to focus on one of the most important stages of any architecture competition, and that is understanding the competition brief. We'll break down the brief in detail inside Rayon, read all of the requirements, and start creating an initial response directly in the software. We'll also identify all of the key objectives that make a competition entry successful, from the ideation all the way through to the final drawings and presentation document. You're welcome to follow along with the class by creating a free Rayon account using the link below or jumping into the template from the description. So, let's get started. We're going to start by looking at the brief, and it's really important to note that whilst this competition is almost like a case study for you guys to follow from start to finish, so starting from the brief all the way through to your competition entry drawings, the lessons are designed so you can follow along with your own competition and projects. So each brief comes with its own challenges, and we encourage you to work with your brief in hand. And so we want you to apply the methods, structure, and best practices demonstrated in this course to your own projects, and that is really important. So you follow along with this course and you implement it into your own designs. So the first step in building the competition entry, of course, is to understand the brief. It's the most important step in the process to really make sure you understand what you are responding to, what your design solution is going to be, and what the design challenge is asking for. So in this case, we have a design challenge that is all about designing a museum for architecture. And so this invites architects, designers, and students worldwide to imagine a new kind of museum. And so fundamentally, this museum is going to be for architects, for designers, for students. And so we need to design something of architectural quality that represents architecture in its own light through the quality of the design, through the choice of materiality, to the response of the landscape, etc. As part of the design challenge, what we have is a series of requirements, so space requirements, and what the brief is looking for. So the design challenge is looking for spaces to exhibit architectural drawings, models, films, and prints. So almost like a gallery or exhibition space, but then also potentially workshops. You've then got an archive and store collections. So the kind of store associated with the exhibition and gallery space is going to be critical, and also some of the back of house spaces. We also want the building to host talks, exhibition, and public events, so we can invite the public into the building and host talks around architecture and design, and also other amenities such as cafes, bookshops, outdoor gathering areas. And we can play with internal, external kind of spaces and how they interact with one another when we kind of go on to looking into the site. And so really the museum should serve as a place for learning, exhibition, and engagement, a hub for architect students and the public to experience and learn architecture and experience architecture, whether that's drawing, models, the building itself. It's all about experiencing architecture. And so the space should be lit to maximize natural light and provide optimal lighting for displaying artwork and models. So lighting is going to be really key for this. Not too much lighting, not too much direct lighting. Don't want to damage the artwork, but also enough lighting to make sure that you can see and experience the artwork in their full capacity. And the key competition requirements are to create a clear and compelling architectural concept, to integrate with the natural landscape and respect for context, so for the local context and wider context, and use a natural local sourced material. So sustainability being a really key feature of this, making sure that it's functional and accessible, and we want an elegant and adaptable exhibition spaces. So that is the design challenge itself. Quite an exciting brief, quite an interesting brief. And then going into the site, you can start to see how we can begin to respond to these site conditions and how we can build our response to the site constraints, opportunities, etc. So the site is within the grounds of Alexandra Palace. People that are based in London would know, obviously, Alexandra Palace. It's essentially North London. It is a park with a palace called Alexandra Palace, which normally hosts events such as darts or various kind of sporting events. It's very well known for hosting very large events. And the palace is established in a cultural, entertainment, and sports venue surrounded by extensive public parkland. So there's plenty of land surrounding. And so we will choose selectively the zone that we want to design our scheme into this landscape. And we'll go into that more detail in the next lesson. But the park sits on a hilly terrain with expansive views over the city, which obviously offers a huge opportunity to integrate the building into the landscape, depending on the level changes, and also to be able to provide views over London and beyond. And entrants are asked to select an appropriate location within the Alexandra Palace Park, considering factors such as access, visibility, landscape character, and the experience of visitors approaching and moving around the museum. And the design should respond sensitively to the slope and natural features, integrating them as defining elements to the architectural proposal. There's definitely a big opportunity to embed the design into the slope, into the landscape, and we will definitely explore that. And a strong dialogue between interior and external spaces. So as part of the slope and as part of the building embedding into the landscape, we could potentially play with internal and external languages, where we can have landscaped areas, where we can have internal areas, and we can create kind of pockets of solid and void. That is the site. It's a very interesting site. You can see here that really the key is the park and the surrounding park and the landscape surrounding. There are lots of opportunities around this site for us to locate it. And within the next lesson, we'll go into some much more detail about what those opportunities might be and where we end up choosing a location around here. Now, we also have, as part of the brief, the space and group function requirements. And so as part of the brief, we have a series of public areas and back of house areas that are being defined, and roughly kind of spatial requirements for those spaces. Now, these are kind of more of a guide. We can go above, we can go slightly under, depending on how we feel, how the spaces are working. When we actually go into some more detail about actually planning some of the floor plans, we might realize that some of the spaces might need to be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, or we might need to break them up into multiple areas. But this is essentially to give you a kind of direction on the space requirements. And so some of the key spaces are, of course, the entrance lobby. That's going to be a really key feature, and that's always a feature of museums or kind of these public spaces such as libraries, where the entrance lobby becomes a feature in itself, and how it integrates into the exhibition and gallery to create that experience for someone to enter the space. We need a theatre space, so a flexible lecture and event space for talks, screenings and presentations. And that might be a zone that is slightly more embedded into the landscape and might not need any lighting. And so that is something that we can work into the landscape and the way that we organise the plan. We then have a cafe and shop, which will obviously be much more public, and that would probably want to be front facing, looking out over the landscape. And we could maybe combine the cafe and shop as one feature. And then we have the gallery and exhibition space, 800 square meters. And I believe it would probably be quite successful to integrate that into almost part of the entrance lobby. So you create a journey for people entering the space, and they have this kind of arrival into the space, and we can explore that and integrate that into the design. And then the other space is project and workshop spaces. So this might be for where you would invite students or architects or designers to do some kind of educational activities. And then you've got back of house zones, which of course is equally important. It's really key to make sure that we're providing gallery storage. So any kind of overflow storage or kind of future exhibitions that are coming in, then we want to provide storage for them. We also need workshop storage. So if we need to store materials or any material for the workshops that are going to be taking place in the building. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we separate back of house entrances and servicing corridors from the public areas. We definitely don't want deliveries and whatnot coming in through the front door where people will be arriving into the space. And so we want to make sure we design the back of house carefully so that there is separation between the two. Now, just as part of the brief, and I'll quickly just cover this through the submission requirements. So as part of the requirements to submit this competition entry, and this is kind of a starting point. We will talk in a little bit more detail in a minute how you could potentially exceed this. But what we will need to submit is a concept statement outlining the vision and narrative of the design, conceptual diagrams illustrating key ideas and spatial strategies, a site plan showing the site response and integration with the landscape, floor plans at an appropriate scale, elevations and sections demonstrating spatial organisation and form. So they are our 5 requirements to submit as part of the competition entry. Eligibility: open to practicing architects and designers, architecture and design students, multidisciplinary teams are welcome. So fundamentally anyone can really apply for this and get involved in the competition. And how to enter: there'll be a URL, etc., that is going to be announced where people can apply. And yeah, so that is the competition brief. As I said, I think it's actually quite an exciting and interesting competition brief, especially for an architect myself. You can really go into some detail and really be quite playful in how you respond to the design. And to build this competition entry, I would be working as a team, and Rayon has an inbuilt real-time collaboration tool, so you can invite your team directly into your models so they can work in your models live as well, drop comments in there, maybe actually amend and edit some of the elements that you're working on, so you can work on the models as a team at the same time. And you can do that by inviting them into your model by going to the top right corner, clicking share, and then you can just invite them via email, and then you can change them as either a viewer, editor, and admin. And so this is a really great way to build a team around your models and get lots of people working on them at once. And the benefit of that also is that you can then use the collaboration tools such as the comment tool, so you can have and drop in any comments that you might have with your team members, or any kind of work in progress items that you want to flag or highlight. And so the collaboration features and tools of Rayon is really successful to collaborate in real time. And when it comes to organizing your projects and working as a team, Rayon uses canvases, which is really key and helpful for structuring your workflow. So Rayon has 2 options here, and they provide very different kind of use cases. And so the 2 options are model canvases and paper canvases. So if you head over to the left hand side, you click layers, you will straight away see here you've got canvases, which you can kind of collapse and open. And this is fundamentally where you will be setting up your drawings, where you'll actually be drawing your drawings, and then when you'll actually be displaying them on a piece of paper, on a canvas. And so you have the model canvas, which is fundamentally the default canvas for when you open up your Rayon model and when you're drawing walls or doors or starting to actually draw your floor plans or elevation sections. That will all be within the model canvas. And so if I quickly show you this, for example, I have my site plan in here. So this is a drawing that I've imported as a DWG, and I've amended and edited and styled within Rayon. And so that would be located in my model canvas. And then in your paper canvas, you will have an actual sheet. For example, you can see here that I've got an A1 sheet orientated portrait. And here you can very quickly kind of go through and change your paper size. You can change your orientation as you wish. And then you can add text, titles, etc. in this paper canvas. And as you can see here, for example, I have a view, which is a view looking into the model canvas that you can then locate in your paper canvas. So when you've got an A1 sheet here, for example, if you want to have a view into your model canvas at 1:20 or 1:50 or 1:100, etc., you can then have all of these views looking into your model canvas and locate them on your paper canvas and organize them and compose them accordingly. And I will show you this in much more detail when we go further down the course and how I kind of lay out my final presentation drawings. But this is a really key feature to understand from the get-go, that you will be doing all of your modeling in the model canvas, and then you'll be setting up your sheets in the paper canvas. And you can do that, and you can create new canvases and new sheets by heading up to this plus button, clicking new canvas, click model canvas, and you'll see here it will create the model canvas. You can name that, I don't know, let's call it floor plan. And to quickly show you how these spaces work, here are some template examples that have been built into with a much more detail. As you can see here, here's your model canvas, here's then your paper canvas, so the presentation, and you can see here all of the views. So for example, this site plan that I just showed you is loaded in, or has a viewport into the model canvas at 1:50. You can see here we have a lot of detail with some of the drawings at 1:25. And here you've got all of your kind of title blocks and views and page setups, and this is where you can build your presentation, your portfolio presentation, or your kind of presentation boards. And so this is fundamentally how Rayon works, and how you model everything in a model canvas, as you can see here. and then you create viewports into your paper canvas where you host all of the text and drawings and title blocks, etc., for you to prepare for your presentations. And so you can use both together, keeping your design and presentation organized in one place, and your whole team can contribute without stepping on each other's toes. That's really important. We've all spent time before in other softwares where you end up clashing and it's really difficult to manage. Here, you can't step on each other's toes. And these are just some example templates. By the end of the course, the model we will build will follow the same structure, aligned with the competition requirements. This means that you'll not only understand the workflow, but you'll also leave with a fully organized example of how you can reference for your own reference for your own competitions. So this is the type of work that we will be producing at the end of this competition. Really beautiful drawings that are kind of set up really well and managed really well within Rayon's canvases. Okay, now that we understand the brief and we've gone through that in quite some detail, I want to just talk through some key objectives that I wanted to focus on for this competition, and also give you a bit of a kind of cheat sheet for competitions that you can apply to your own competitions as we go through this course. And so I believe there's kind of 4 really key components to a successful architectural competition. The first being research. I think this is the first and foremost most important element of any project, never mind a competition, and that is to really understand the brief, really go into the brief into some detail, do your research into the brief, what it's asking for, what are the requirements, and also going that step further and understanding exactly what the design response might be, and building that kind of foundation for your design to follow on from. And so all of your design decisions, whether that be your massing, whether that's being your circulation or material choice or diagrams or the communication of your final drawings, should link back to the requirement and the opportunities raised in the brief. And that is really key to build that foundation for your project. And this also ensures that your proposal feels intentional and aligned with the competition brief goals. And the more you understand the brief, the site, the program, the constraints, the ambitions of the brief, the stronger and more grounded your project will be. I really think that is absolutely crucial. The next one is to over-deliver. Now, I think this one probably take with a pinch of salt, because I think there's a very fine balance between over-delivering, doing too much work, too much quantity, and not delivering on the quality. I always find there's a really fine balance between the two. But the really important thing here is to make sure that you stand out and you almost go above and beyond, and make sure that you put in a competition entry that is going to stand out amongst the rest. So going above and beyond, which includes maybe extra diagrams, visualizations, or spatial studies, can really show that kind of thoughtfulness, that depth and care that you've put into the project. And it's really important, as I say, to remember that quality matters, and more than quantity. If you can't deliver quality over doing additional drawings, for example, above our kind of baseline that is being shared in our brief, if you can't provide quality above those drawings, don't bother. But make sure that if you do over deliver and you do provide more quantity, make sure you also provide that quality, and that the quality isn't going to diminish because of the quantity that you're adding to it. So I would really encourage you to find a balance that elevates your submission without overwhelming it. So focus on adding meaningful content, diagrams that clarify your thinking, visuals that capture the atmosphere, or additional sections that reveal spatial richness, for example. So over-delivering works best when it enhances clarity, communication, and strengthens the overall narrative, not when it adds more pages. We don't want just additional pages. Make sure you have quality and quantity. You can find that balance. I think that's a really great and important thing for a competition entry. And that almost leads me into point 3, which is that presentation is key. And this is also a really fundamental tool to make your presentation stand out amongst the rest. And I believe that communication is really fundamental. It's the most fundamental skill and tool that we have in architecture. And so you could have probably the best and most wonderful idea in the world and best concept, but it could be really kind of let down by the communication of your drawings. So really make sure that you focus on the communication style that should support the story of your project and help it stand out visually. So this includes things such as choosing consistent drawing styles, defining a clear color palette, setting thoughtful typography, and the general composition hierarchy and layout of your presentation should be professional, clean, neat, but also have a communication style that kind of stands out and that is clear and coherent and consistent. And that is really important to make sure that your ideas are seen and understood and remembered. And that's really important because at the end of the day, competition, people are going to be competing for the same position. You want to be able to stand out and you want to be remembered. And the final thing is kind of leaning more into that point one again, is that researching the jury is also really critical. So understanding what the juries are and who the critiques are going to be, and then understanding potentially what their preferences are. So what architectural styles they like, the communication tendencies and interests they have in architecture. This will help you because you can start to tailor your design response or your communication style, or the way that you even communicate your drawings and your work to that jury, and the way that you verbally present it. That will really kind of dictate how you do that and how you build that project around the jury. Obviously, you don't want to take it away from your own personal kind of direction and ideas of the project. You don't want to fully focus on the jury, but definitely keep that in mind and keep that research in the back of your mind when you're building your project, and almost just try and tailor it ever so slightly towards them to give you a better chance of leaning into what they're interested in, into what their expertise might be, and do some research into historic entries and what made them successful. Obviously, avoid copying, use them as a precedent study, analyze what was previously successful with those juries, and just tailor your design slightly to that to give you a better chance of kind of leaning into their interests, their personality, and what they're interested in. And so this will just help you kind of strategically position your work, ensuring that your entry speaks directly to the critiques while still reflecting your own design identity. And that is lesson 1. Thank you for joining this class. In the next lesson, we're going to take everything we've learned from the competition brief and begin developing a design response. So inside Rayon, I'll walk you through how I start diagramming and conceptualizing ideas in response to the site, conditions, opportunities, and constraints. We really start building a strong concept in response to the things that we've talked about in this first lesson. And if you haven't already, create your free Rayon account or browse the course templates linked in the description, and I'll see you in the next class.